Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us. Today we're having a seminar that's looking at how philanthropy and cybersecurity are related to each other, or should be related to each other. I'm Giuseppe Ugazio, I'm professor at the University of Geneva in behavioral philanthropy, and together with my colleague we are developing a series of seminars where we look at very hot topics in philanthropy and what are the experts thinking about these topics. Today I have the great pleasure of working in this seminar with Fabienne and Ottavia. So as you all know, the philanthropic sector is becoming increasingly digital, as all other sectors are, and this has a lot of perks, has a lot of advantages, but it also comes to, unfortunately, some risks. And on top of all the other risks, cyber threats are becoming even more prevalent. And we know that, unfortunately, not even the philanthropic sector is spared by this, not hospitals, no one is safe from these risks. So it's becoming paramount that also the philanthropic sector not only starts to develop its own knowledge and capacity to defend itself from these threats, but also should probably take an active role in preventing these threats. So the colleagues from the Cyber Peace Institute today will tell us a bit about where we stand and what could be done, what we can start doing both as individuals, but most importantly as the philanthropic sector. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Fabienne. Fabienne has a long experience in cybersecurity, including at ICRC. And as soon as he left, then you saw what happened. So we should have kept him there. And Ottavia also has a master in cyber security and law and counterterrorism. And they're both working at the Cyber Peace Institute, and it's a great pleasure to have you here with us. I'll leave the floor to you now.
Thanks a lot. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. So as a starting point, we would like to tell you a bit what's the threat landscape out there for NGOs. But we would like to start by telling you a bit about us, the Cyber Peace Institute. So we are an NGO, non-governmental organization, founded in 2019, and we are based in Geneva. As for now, we are more or less, 27 staff, 30 staff. And our main mission is to bring about cyber peace, build cyber peace bit by bit. And we will show you later how we are trying to do that. In particular, we focus on three main work streams. So first of all, we assist the most vulnerable. This is the most, let's say, operational type of activities that Fabienne and myself, together with two other colleagues, we carry out. But we also investigate cyber attacks. Our colleagues in the analysis team try to understand what have happened behind a cyber attacks, what are the trends and patterns in order to create alerts and reports for the community. And finally, our colleagues in the advancement team, they advocate for the rights of people in the online space. So after telling you what the Institute does, we want to tell you a bit more about, again, what's the environment, what's the situation out there. So you might know that to the most vulnerable, NGOs, no-profits, charities, and associations are the last line of defense, in the sense that in many countries, vulnerable communities and populations rely on the critical services provided by NGOs. We're talking about healthcare services, water treatment and sanitation, food provision, all the way to information, education, empowerment. And so we saw that when NGOs get attacked, vulnerable communities are put at risk because they don't have access to the critical services they need to survive and keep on with their lives. And so we believe that for cyber peace, this is the most critical and urgent issue at the moment to bring about cyber peace. Here you can see some examples of cyber attacks and cyber threats that have targeted NGOs and the aid and development sector in general in the last years. You might have heard some of these. As you can see, there is the attack on the Red Cross. And here, the message is really that this is happening because for cyber criminals, carrying out this type of attacks is super easy. You cannot even imagine how easy it is. We have some stats of why this is so easy in the next slide. But this is not only easy, it's also very low risk for cyber criminals to carry out these attacks. This because, unfortunately, NGOs and no-profits are not really in the the first priority for authorities. Unfortunately, there are many type of groups that they are targeted by cybercrime, and NGOs are not. The first priority for authorities again. And so all these turn out to be a big payout for cyber criminals. So maybe cyber criminals don't end up asking millions to NGOs, but even if they just ask 1,000 to 100 NGOs, that's a good amount of money. And here are some of the stats I mentioned before. So the reason why these attacks are so easy is because just 1 in 10 NGOs train their staff on cybersecurity. So there is no continuous training and awareness, raising awareness on what are the threats for NGOs and their staff. 1 in 4 monitor their networks. These for many reasons, starting from lack of budget, lack of time, lack of expertise. It's not something super easy to monitor the network of an organization. And so as a result, only 1 in 5 NGOs has a cybersecurity plan in place. So that means that there is no strategy. That means that cybersecurity is not looked at strategic, operational, and tactical level. Cybersecurity is just as easy as it is not a mindset for many of the NGOs out there. And again, to give you some numbers, we have seen that since 2016, more or less 500 and even more attacks have been happening. That has resulted in more or less more than $10 million grants stolen, and a lot of records stolen, a lot of data out there. But what's very important to understand here is that when we're talking about data, we're not talking about the email address, the date of birth. We are talking about the religious affiliation of some communities, their political orientation. That could be targeted by some governments, unfortunately, but also from some non-state groups and other malicious actors out there. But in the work we did, we have some examples, right, that we can share.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ottavia. Well, I think you also saw the first connection here with the question of philanthropy behind, because all these NGOs, they get money from grants. And of course, when you give out money to NGO, you want also to be sure that the money is really used for the operation of the NGO. So if suddenly there is money stolen, there is ransomware attack, and there's ransom to pay, that you grant finance criminal groups behind, that's also a critical issue in terms of your own operations. And the reality is that there is many cyber attacks, as Ottavia explained. Just want to share with you 2 recent examples we worked on. One was a ransomware attack. So you all probably heard about that in the news. There is more and more company, states, even city that got hit by the ransomware, which is a malware, so a malicious software that once activated on a device or on a server, encrypt everything. And everything is blocked and you have to pay a ransom. So what happened to one of a big NGO, worldwide activities, is that they forget they had a test server. So you know when you run operation, IT operation, sometimes you have test application that you use only for testing purpose, but then you have to remove them from the network. But of course, sometimes when you don't have enough resources in IT or you don't have the capability to monitor your network, because that costs a lot and you need people to do that, you may forget this kind of stuff that you are doing only for testing purpose. And what happened is that this server became vulnerable. So there was a vulnerability, meaning that the system is not up to date, not patched anymore. And criminals were able to connect to this server, enter into it. And from this server, they were able to move laterally into the network of the organization, so the operational network of the organization. They spent some time, I think it was 2-3 weeks, just looking around. Okay, what's happening? What's going on? And they decided to target the financial system of the organization. So they targeted the financial system, everything was encrypted. And then, you know, it's the classical one. You get an email, or all your screen goes black, and you have a countdown on the screen asking to pay a ransom. And they said, okay, you are nice, you are an NGO, so we do you an NGO discount. So they were just asked for 1 million euros to pay. So you can see the results. So now, in criminal groups, some of them also just say, okay, we don't really care. And that also happened a lot to the healthcare during COVID. You may have seen there are some criminal groups that said, okay, we will not target hospitals because they are critical for the population, but some others, they don't care at all. And that's still a reality. So that's just the first example, saying that on a technical point of view, and that's really the capability of monitor a network, having cybersecurity plan, having the budget, the resources to do IT, could be a critical aspect to secure an organization. The second story is more a classical one. You know, there is a lot of NGO, and as corporation, by the way, that rely a lot on social media. So you use social media to communicate, to make promotion, to find donors, to explain what you do about your activity, your program, etc. Even some NGOs we are working with in Africa, for example, they only rely on Facebook. So without a Facebook access, they can do nothing, because that's their way to engage with the community. So what happened to an NGO based in Geneva, in fact, is that they got hit by a phishing email. So you probably all receive, you know, this famous phishing email, click here to get your packet delivered by the post, or it's stuck at the custom, you have to pay some fees, etc., etc. But in this specific case, what they got was an Instagram phishing email. So they sent it to the communication department of the NGO, telling them that, oh, you know, you are using a picture that is under copyright. So that's something very common. If you use a bit of social media, you receive a lot of this email. So click here to review the claim and argue for your case. So of course the person clicked, opened a web page that looks like Instagram, which of course was not Instagram. And what happened when you enter your credential, when you enter the login, the password, in fact, these data directly go to the cyber criminal. And what they did, of course, they simply connect to the Instagram account. And what they did, they changed the password, they changed the email, and they changed the phone numbers related to this Instagram account. And then they simply send a WhatsApp message to the previous number registered on Instagram, telling them, okay, we take over your account. If you don't pay us some money, you will never get it back. So of course, the organization never paid money, but you know, to get access to Instagram or Facebook, this kind of social media platform behind, to defend we got hacked, it took them, I think, 2 months, something like that, to be able to get back their account online. And we're still working with a non-profit organization that still doesn't have back their account online. It's big players for months. So that's also showed the lack of awareness. And that's exactly the first part. I mean, if you are not able to train regularly your staff, explain them the risk, explain them how to better secure an environment, you can put at risk your own organization, association, but by design, you put at risk the grant you got from the donors. So that's a bit the situation. And we really believe that, all these people, all the NGO working on the front line, they are really a critical aspect to protect. But to be able to protect them, they need also different financial resources, and they need people resources. And that's part of the activity of the Cyber Peace Institute, so especially on the assistance team we are working with Otavia. We work closely on one side with the different donors to explain them, okay, how can they secure their own environment? Because of course, the story I was telling you before not only happened to NGO, but also happened to the other stakeholders. And help also to understand the cyber exposure of the different grantees. So we'll come a little bit more in details, but just to make it very short to the kind of support we offer to the grantee. I will come back with Otavia deeper in that case, but we have a community of volunteers that help this NGO to secure their own infrastructure, to work on pre-incident phase, so set up a digital policy, set up cyber awareness training, do risk assessment. Maybe you know when you get grant or you give grant out, you also ask people, okay, but what's your cybersecurity posture? So NGO now have to be able to answer to this kind of question that is usually restricted or reserved to the private world. We also offer a way of securing the infrastructure, so alerting them in case of cyber attack. We are setting up certification, again, to help them, but I will give you more detail on that. And of course, we have different resources and training available. So we tried at the Cyber Peace Institute to address all the challenges the corporate world face, but for the NGO and in a free way. So we deliver all the services to the non-profit organization. We help on this front line for free. That's really the aspect. On the other side, there is the donors. So there is a lot of challenges that you have to face when you give out money. So in the past, you have the traditional risk assessment that you conduct, but it's true that today, cyber is taking a real big part of the reality of this NGO and how you manage your grants. So typically, we have the question of the exposure. What's the exposure of your grantees? Are they well protected? Can you analyze all their website to see if there is risk? Because of course, suddenly you have risk on a website that, for example, someone can get money, you know, you have all this donate money, etc., small amount. But even if criminal can get that compromised, maybe they can access the full database of the donors behind the organization. Maybe they can steal personal data of beneficiaries. So all this question of exposition is really a key asset today to be tackled. Same for the investigation part. We are saying there was case of cyber attack. We also had, it was 2 years ago, I think, we worked with an NGO active notably in Afghanistan. They got 1 million stolen from a CEO scam. So you know the famous CEO scam, criminals were able to connect to the email system of the organization because the financial officer was using the same credential, login and password on different websites. One of these websites got compromised, the credentials were leaked online, and criminals simply tried to connect to the webmail of the organization using the same login and password. And it works. And then they stay around the organization. And when the CEO was traveling from the US to Asia, they sent a fake email in the name of the CEO. Hey, can you please do this wire transfer? It's very urgent. And really, they found the same tone of voice, the same level of urgency, because they were looking at all the emails. So there's all an aspect then of investigation. Okay, why did that happen? What can we do to correct it? What's the reporting you have to do, maybe to the law enforcement, to your donors, etc., etc. So that's also resources that usually NGOs don't have. So it's again the question of the philanthropy, of the donors behind, to say, okay, what can we do to support our NGO, our grantees, to work on cybersecurity aspect? And finally, of course, all the aspect of training. So when we talk of training, it's also to understand what kind of question you should ask when you talk of cybersecurity. Because again, if NGO don't have necessarily cyber expert, maybe on the other side you don't also have cyber experts. But there is basic question, there is stuff that you can easily ask and that you can easily understand to better understand the situation of all the different NGOs. So voilà, that's just to give you a bit an overview of the different kind of activities you can do, but really what is important in terms of cybersecurity is that when you want to help or work with NGO to improve the situation, you need people. That's the first thing. You definitely need people. You need cybersecurity experts. But you also need data. Because to explain to the NGO what's happening to them or what is the threat landscape, what is the situation, you need to understand what's happening outside. And of course, usually private companies, they pay a lot of money to cybersecurity companies to get access to threat intelligence feed, etc., etc. But NGO, they cannot pay this amount of money. So there is another challenge here to face. Same with the tool. Ottavia was saying, okay, if you want to monitor your network, giving you this example before of monitoring your website security, you need tools. And this is also really expensive. And what happened on the other side, that's usually when a non-profit organization gets money, it's tailored for an operation on the ground. And everyone forget a bit about this back office. How can we ensure the security of our activity on the ground by giving out money to support the IT, the cybersecurity part of an organization? We work with a big NGO in Lausanne. The IT budget, the overall IT budget of the organization is 1%. That's the IT budget. So in this 1%, you have the IT security. So you can imagine the challenges when in the private sector, we are more close to 10%. So this is a question that you have to ask, that all of us have to ask. When we manage relationship with organizations, how can we tailor better support to help them on the cybersecurity aspect?
So I guess that saying all this, we can all agree that donors and philanthropies have a major responsibility in providing specific support to NGOs and grantees. On the other side, NGOs have also their piece of responsibility to protect not only their beneficiaries, but the data they use. So at the Institute, we've been working on this very long, past 2 years, and we came up with this program called Cyber Peace Builders. And this is our way to provide assistance to NGOs, and we are seeing this actually working. We have a slide later on. But the Cyber Peace Builders is, in a nutshell, is a network of cybersecurity experts. These are professionals from all trades. So we have experts specifically on cybersecurity, but we also have experts in IT infrastructure, cloud security, data protection, so on and so forth. And the important aspect here is that these experts are employed by private companies. So this is a network of corporate volunteers. We don't accept, let's say, individual volunteers for many reasons that we can tell you later on if you're interested. But this is really relies on the workforce of private companies. And we asked these experts to volunteer during their working time 20 or plus hours a year to protect NGOs. You might think that amount of time it's nothing, but at the moment we're working with more than 70 volunteers. And it's start being a bit of time, and time is an issue, let's say, not only on the volunteer side, but also on the NGO side, because it's not, as Fabian said before, it's not their core activity to carry on cybersecurity, but it's still important that they embed it in everything they do. And so the builders and we, together with them, we provide mostly 3 types of services that we can split in these buckets that you can see in the slide. We have the pre-incident, so it's everything related to prevention. So we have security assessment, but also cybersecurity trainings and hygienes. The post-incident is more, that doesn't mean that an organization has to go through an incident to use these services, absolutely, but it's more everything related to hardening, to strengthen the cybersecurity posture of an organization. And finally, we have the support, which is more a bit of everything else, in the sense that it has the legal component. So if NGOs need support in drafting their privacy notice on the website, or maybe understanding how to protect better their data, but also coaching and how to communicate about a potential cyber threat and cyber attack. But we have some more concrete examples that we can share.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, maybe if you allow me just to start with the post-incident one, typically the dark web monitoring and attack notification. Again, that's something very current in the private sector world. That's what kind of stuff we try to deploy for this NGO. But if you remind just the example I gave you before of this CO scam attack, of this NGO operating in Afghanistan with the credentials stolen. If the NGO was able to monitor the dark web, they will directly identify the stolen credential of the financial officer, because they were easy to find. But there was no one that doing this job and report to them. But if someone is able simply to report to them that there is credential out, on the dark web, they can simply check, are they still active on our site, and change the password, and will save everything, will stop the attack. So very easy in terms of mindset and action, but of course a bit tricky to set up and put in place. Pre-incident, also for example, we recently conducted a phishing campaign on a big organization targeting the financial department. Because of course, usually when you talk about the phishing attack, most of the cyber criminals still are looking to get access to money. So you were giving before the example for ICRC. It's true, it's a bit different, because here we probably are more confronted to a state-sponsored attack. So someone really wanted to get access to information, data about beneficiaries, but most of the case, the actor behind cyber attack against NGO, they are cyber criminals. So they're really interested in getting access to money to the fund. That's their goal. And the best way to enter an organization is always to target the human. We call that social engineering. It's more easy to hack the human brain than to hack the technology. And of course, one of the common ways to delivering such an attack is what we call a phishing email. So typically, one of the activities we conduct with NGOs is to say, okay, we run phishing attack against your finance department, making them looks like it's one of your donors, so it's someone that is looking for information, etc. And when you click, of course, nothing happened. That's the training purpose. And then you can work to train to explain what happened behind. Again, these kind of services are very common. If you know a bit the world of the private banks, some of them, they do phishing campaigns every week to test all the staff. And on top of that, you have some banks, typically, that when you click 3 times on a phishing email, you may be fired. Because that's challenges in security. That's definitely not happening in the NGO side, but the risks are similar. Of course, the exposition may be different, but the risks are similar. And the last example, maybe on the support and marketing part, we also recently had an NGO that got a cyber attack, again on the social media, and they were asking themselves, okay, what shall we do? How shall we communicate? Shall we say nothing, you know, play it under the carpet? Okay, nothing happened, just we had a technical issue. Or shall we be very transparent? And here again, we work with this NGO to tell them the better way is to be transparent. Because if you don't say what happened to you, the other will never know. And you need to create this awareness. I mean, we know that everyone will be or has been targeted by a cyber attack. That will happen, for sure. But if no one communicates, if there is no community, especially in this NGO world and philanthropy world, that is able to share this information, no one can be protected. And the private sector, they know that very well. They rely on the cybersecurity company. They pay a lot of money to have the circle of trust. And the cybersecurity company, they deliver what we call IOC, indicator of compromise, that they share among their partners, the customers, in fact, to warn them about the cyber attack. In the non-profit world, that's not working very well at all. So there's also these challenges to say, okay, you need to make this awareness, you need to explain to the community what happened to you, because it will happen to them too. Voilà. So that's just some example of typical services that this NGO needs, but that are very costly for them to put in place.
Exactly, but you absolutely mentioned something important, that's the sense of community. And so in this specific program, with all the NGOs, and that can be, of course, your grantees as well. We don't only offer expertise, that's, again, for free to all NGOs. So the NGOs have access to a pretty wide range of cybersecurity experts coming from different backgrounds with different type of expertise, again. But they also can access this community that we are creating not only with the builders, but also between NGOs themselves. So we are giving to NGOs a safe place that we monitor. We are there for them every day, like literally daily, to listen to them if they have any questions. So for instance, some NGOs came up asking questions about the use of specific software, Russian software, following the war and invasion in Ukraine, asking us, is that secure? Can we use Kaspersky products, for instance? And we are there giving our advice, giving our opinions. That's neutrally independent, and it's based to provide security advices on their activities. But this is also a place where we share alerts about cybersecurity threats, cyber threats that we find out. And so we try really to build local and collective resilience in this way. And in the slide, you can see how we concretely do all this. So we use a cooperation platform where we put together the volunteers, the builders on one side, and NGOs on the others. A very important aspect here is we care a lot about the security and the anonymity of our beneficiaries. That's the name we give to NGOs part of the program. And so their name is not revealed until a builder decided or is available to help them. So all this, I would say, is really tailored to the NGOs experience. But this is not the only way that is available to help NGOs.
Indeed, as I was talking before, there's all these challenges of data. So if private companies have this indicator of compromise feed in the NGO, in the non-profit world, we have to find different solutions. So the solution we find is that we are signing partnership with big companies, Microsoft, Google, to get access to part of the threat intelligence feed. So that's also information then we can push to the NGOs. The reality is that most of them, they are happy to share that. Because I mean, when you work in security, in cybersecurity or security world, you want to change something. You are defending something. And the private company, they understand very well that in their current program or the current way they do money, NGOs are not a good target for them. Because they are not really interested to do NGO discounts. So a lot of them do NGO discount, but at the end, that's not where they get money. They may get visibility, but that's not one of the key aspects. So sharing information about cyber attack against NGO, they are most of them happy to do it because they know that there will be something behind. So there will be help beyond provided to these NGOs. And no one in the private world will provide this help for free. So that's also a very good point of connection. Same for the philanthropy. And I mean, the donors, when you engage with big company, with big tech company, keep that in mind. How can they help you so you can help your beneficiaries on the other side? And that's a very important point. So just to give you an example, I think we have now CIT, so this is the CIT tracker of the Institute. So we have one currently online that you can easily find on the website of the Cyber Peace Institute that collect all cyber attack about healthcare industries for the past years. So that also shows a reality of how healthcare industry are targeted by cyber criminal? What kind of cyber attack happened? Why did they happen? And we are currently working, should be published, I think, end of the month or the next month. It's the stats you saw before in the slide about cyber attack against non-profit organizations. So that's also very interesting in terms of risk assessment. If you know that NGO, for example, working especially in food delivery or in water treatment, they are especially targeted by cyber criminals. That's also an information how they have to protect themselves. But you need to have this overview to understand how to protect yourself. What are the key aspects that you have to protect? So that's very an important part of the activities. And at the same time, having access to all this information helps you to put in place certification. You know, that's very, again, in the private sector, that's very common. You have all these certification, ISO 2017, etc., that demonstrate cybersecurity. But what about non-profit organization? Nothing. So one of the projects we are pushing to work with this NGO, and we are working together with them to set that up, is certification, a light way of certification. Because at the end, that's also a way for NGO to demonstrate that they care about cybersecurity. And who is interested in that? I mean, their beneficiaries are interested to know that their data are protected. The staff is interested to know that their data is protected. And of course, you, the donators, philanthropy behind, is interested to know that. Because if suddenly you do a risk assessment and you decide to give 10 million grants to an organization and one is taking care of cybersecurity, they put in place the minimal versus one that do nothing, that doesn't have the question of challenge of cybersecurity, that will help you in your decision. So that's also a way for us to help NGOs to be more secure and to help them to be more resilient against cyber attack. The next point is about the tools. Again, as I explained to you, the challenges is to get access to this advanced tool. So here again, we try to do partnership with private companies that give us free access so we can help the NGO to assess their own security, to monitor their own security. What you can see on the next slide is typically a solution that allows to monitor your website, that will check the security of your website, that will check the email security. Because you know what? Email security is also a big challenge. We had last year, it was in December, there was a major cyber attack against Microsoft Exchange server. So Exchange server are the email server that allow you to send out the email, receive email, etc. There is two ways of managing that. You have the cloud solution that most of the people use, but you also have the on-premise version, meaning you have a server in your office. And you know, a lot of NGOs, they prefer to have on-premise servers. Because first of all, they have the feeling that they control the data, because you can see the machine when you have the data, and also it could be less expensive. But the reality is that when you have on-premise system, you have to monitor them, you have to patch them, you have to protect them. When it's in the cloud, usually it's the tech provider that do it for you. And what happened in December, there was a big cyber attack, a vulnerability was discovered against this Exchange server, and cyber criminals started to target Exchange server of NGOs. They enter the servers and they get access to all the email exchange. And what they did, they simply send out email to an email thread. So I just simply send back an email from Otavia to Otavia with phishing emails, with links. And when you click on the links, it activates a malware. But if you do a technical analysis, it's really me that send the email to Otavia. It's really my organization, it's my NGO that send out the emails. So in terms of reputation, of trust, that's also very dangerous. And you know that once trust is broken, it's very complicated to get it back. And again, this is on the technical aspect. So we try to help NGOs with this tool. We try to help them with the training to learn how to detect cyber attacks. So it's really a knowledge transfer. And that's very important also for the NGO. It's even if they don't have a cybersecurity specialist in their staff, there is always a geek. In all your organization, you know, there is a geek. There is someone that knows a bit better, that loves to touch it, etc. This is the kind of person that has to be a cybersecurity champion. And this is the kind of person that any organization has to invest a bit of energy and money on this person. And that's also typically the kind of coaching in the part of the support that we try to deliver thanks to the support of the volunteers.
And in this slide, as mentioned before, you can see where we are in terms of numbers, specifically about the Cyber Peace Builders. We are currently helping more than 40 NGOs, so I think 45 and 48, okay, so close to 50. So these were saying that this model is up and running and it's working. And it's actually, in the past months, it's growing organically. So we're not actively reaching out to NGOs anymore, but the NGOs are coming to us. So in a way, the ecosystem is changing a little bit, but we really believe that if donors and philanthropies would be more involved, this would change the ecosystems even a bit more. And again, for numbers, we have more or less like 90 missions. So these are the tasks that builders are asked to do to help NGOs be better protected online. And all this allows us to protect a lot of people, because in us protect and helping the NGOs indirectly, we're protecting the people that NGOs protect. And same applies for the money, for the grants. And just in the next slide, to give you an idea of some of the organizations we work with. So I will tell you a bit about the NGOs, because these are the part of the party I'm dealing with. And as you can see, you might know some names. Some are big international civil society actors, some others are really small. And there is no really geographic location. The Cyberpeace Builders is an international program, but we really want to, we really believe in the contextualizing assistance. So we started the program in Geneva, because we know the area, and then we extended to Europe. And at the moment, we're also extended in East Africa, where one of our colleagues is based in Nairobi and is helping us reaching out to organizations there. So we are going by regions. The next region should be Latin America, specifically Mexico, maybe. We're still thinking about it, but the idea is really to provide international support, but still based on the context that NGOs work with. And Fabian, if you, for the companies.
Yeah, maybe just also on the companies. So we are still an NGO. So we are an NGO like the one we're helping. So we are an NGO to NGO service provider. So it's true, it's also very important for us to get this partnership and to get financial support from our partners. So the tech industry is of course really interested. I mean, the program is tailored for the tech industry because we onboard their staff, we onboard volunteers from them to help the organization, but we also try to work with foundation. And typically the model we are putting in place is to say we can help support the grantees of the different organizations in exchange of a percentage of the money that is giving out to these organizations. So that's also a way for us to be sustainable in the work of our activities and to run the program. And I have to be honest, the Institute is a very cool work environment with an amazing team. That's self-promotion for the team, amazing team with Ottavia. But it's also an interesting way of working, because even if we are a non-profit organization, I mean, the staff come from different horizons. So it's very interesting to see how we can move to different activities and tackle these challenges of working with the tech industry. Because a lot of non-profit organizations, usually they're afraid of the private sector, because they see it, a bit as the devil. The reality is totally different. There is nice partnership to do. There is way to involve this tech company to support non-profit organization. But that's definitely one of the challenges. So just about the Institute, it's exactly what also Ottavia told you, the regional aspect I think is very key. When you do cybersecurity, you need people on the ground that understand the culture, that understand the challenge, that speak the language. Typically Zakaria, that is working from Nairobi, he's really helpful on the ground. Because when you try to engage with NGO to talk to them of cybersecurity, you have three categories. You have the ones that are very scared of cybersecurity, and they are happy to get help. Easy. You have the middle one. They say, okay, we know that cybersecurity is a challenge, and unfortunately, thanks to ICRC since this year, this is a concern that become growing and growing for NGOs. So it's a way to reach out to them. But the other are saying, oh, we don't care. We have nothing. Who is interested in us? And we all have friends like that tell us, no, someone can hack me. I have nothing to hide. Everyone has that. So this is the biggest challenges, because even these NGOs, they host sensitive information about their beneficiary, donors, and staff, and they need protection. But of course, these NGOs, when they are around the world, you cannot do that from Geneva. You cannot send them an email, hey, you're at risk, you should do something. Maybe you saw even in the press yesterday, Or last week, you have the Swiss cybersecurity department that sent warning to a Swiss company telling them, you are vulnerable, you will be under attack, and they never replied. So even when you are in the same location, it's tricky. So typically, we work with this regional advisor, with these people on the ground to help us to advocate, to make the change with the NGO on the ground. And that's really a critical aspect. And then, of course, there is all the guarantee around the program activity. So we work with trusted partners, and with the NGO, with the private company. We have insurance also to protect the beneficiary, the builders. If something happens, usually it should not. But again, the goal is that everyone feels safe. When you provide free assistance to NGO, you need to feel safe. And I think that's really a bit for us, this aspect. We just wanted to flag that as donors, as philanthropy organization, you have a role to tackle in cybersecurity. So on the operational aspect, the institute is here. There is other NGO around the world that are also working to improve operational aspect of cybersecurity. But the reality is that that's not enough. We are just an enabler of cybersecurity for all these organizations, for all these NGO. We help them to demonstrate they have need in cybersecurity. But on the other side, if they are not able to get money to run cybersecurity or IT operation, there will still be an issue at the end. So the CyberPeace Institute or the builder is not meant to save the IT security world, it's just meant to be an enabler to demonstrate there is a need and there is responsibility to be taken from all the stakeholders in the world.
Thank you very much, Otavio and Fabien, for this overview of what can be done for cybersecurity. Just before we continue to the Q&A, just want to share that, so as you mentioned, normally the human is the person that needs to be trained, that needs help in educating himself in how to behave properly. So at the University of Geneva, we're also developing this diploma of advanced studies in philanthropy, where we are actually trying to train individuals in becoming better philanthropists on many different aspects. So to become what we call a professional philanthropy from a 360 degrees perspective. So cybersecurity could be one of the aspects that will be incorporated as part of our efforts to educate people on becoming more savvy about the digital technologies, their risks and their advantages. You can find more information about this program on our website, but I just wanted to point out that it's one of the programs that we have in Switzerland. Is the only certified program in philanthropy. Its core strength is about the interdisciplinarity. So we have really experts from very different fields that can help us understand how to do philanthropy well from the very different angles in which we need to do philanthropy. Now, before closing, if there are any questions from the audience.
Thank you. That was very interesting. I have two questions. One is how you help NGOs to manage their reputational risk. If you do, and if you don't, then what do you advise to them? And the other one is about the darknet. So you said it was easy on the darknet, but people are very fearful of the darknet. So how can you put into place automated systems or human surveillance on the darknet when people are afraid to go in because they think that it opens doors to all sorts of criminals?
Thanks a lot for the question. So in terms of reputational risk, that's not something super easy to do because that requires to cover many topics and help the NGOs to strengthen not only their cybersecurity posture, but also, for instance, how they communicate about their cybersecurity posture. So I would say that in general, yes, we do this. Like the CyberPeace Builders program itself, it's not in and out type of assistance, but it's really aimed to build resilience and capacities within the organization. All the tasks, all the needs are tailored to the organizations. And so we normally have a set of tasks, but then we have organizations coming to us with a specific need, and then we work on it. And so I would say that taking all these tasks together, allow us to help the NGOs in also strengthen their reputation when it comes down to cybersecurity.
And for the document part, I think there is always two aspects. One is cybersecurity, and one is data protection and data privacy. And the first challenges for any organization is to understand what are the critical assets. Because a lot of time, not everything is critical. If you look at Campus Biotech, let's say the menu of the cafeteria is not a critical asset. So you don't need to put a lot of energy to protect this specific asset. But this is the first challenges for any organization, is to be able to identify where are the critical assets. And then they have the question of, is it data privacy or data security more important? Maybe it's both. But typically, we work with organizations that use Google. They put all documents on Google Drive. And I said, okay, but is it secure? Is Google Drive secure? Usually the answer we can provide to them is, yes, if your staff is properly trained. So if you have two-factor authentication, if you have complex, unique password to access to your account, you have a monitoring in place that usually Google take care of this monitoring to alert you if someone tries to connect. Maybe some of you sometimes get this email, a new device try to connect. So in terms of data security, that's great. In terms of data privacy, maybe you said, it's all US company. So depending the field of activities, that could be a challenges. So this is really how we discuss with organizations about document, where they put data, etc. Is first identify where their critical assets are, and then what they want to protect them against. So this is a bit the strategy to put in place. It's answer the questions?
Only partly, because you didn't, sorry if I may say so, because you didn't talk about the dark web itself. And the dark web is something that people see as very, very threatening.
Sorry, I didn't know the dark web on the document. My bad. So yeah, about the dark web. So there is tool to allows monitoring of the dark web. So you cannot do it on your side. So definitely here you need to rely on a company that is able to do this dark web monitoring on a regular basis. Then there is an easy solution that anyone can put in place, and you can check yourself. For example, there is a website called Have I Been Pwned? We can make you demonstration at the end of the session. We have some example we'll show you. On Have I Been Pwned website, you can simply enter your email address, and it will check if your email address was leaked in one of the dark web information. And that's also an easy way as an individual or as an organization to check on a time-to-time basis what's the situation. But really, if you want an advanced monitoring that is continuous, you need to rely then on a company that do that. Well, thank you.
Yeah, one question about certification. You said that it would be useful to move towards certification, but at the same time, what you describe is a very tailor-made service that you need to apply to NGOs depending on their activities. So can you, just enlighten us on this?
No, sure. So, it's like in the corporate world. So when you have all this ISO certification, it's more a set of aspects that have to be taken into consideration. So typically you will have, let's say, you need cyber awareness, so you need to train your staff. But that's at the certification level. Then you can tick the box. People love to tick boxes. But then you have the reality behind. What mean train the staff? To give you an example of my previous activity with ICRC, I was in charge of cyber awareness. And we had a lot of discussion. Should we make, a training from Geneva that we publish all around the world? Or should we do tailored stuff? And the reality is that you had a similar content for everyone, but the stories, the example you share, you need people from the ground to tell these stories. They need to adapt the example to the context. When we talk of phishing emails, here in Europe it's worked well. When you start to talk of phishing email in East Africa, for example, they don't get a lot of them. What they get a lot is SMS phishing. So certification is the same aspect. So you have this backbone saying you need training, you need to take care of information security, etc., etc. But then the way you apply the answer to these different aspects need to be tailored. So that's a bit the idea of the certification, is to say the organization are able to demonstrate they have tackled the different aspects, but the operational detail, it's up to each organization to put them correctly in place with our help directly on their side. It answered super.
We do have a question also from the live stream. What can the academic sector do to help NGOs either build awareness, boost protection against cyber attacks?
Yeah, that's a great point. So academics can help train people in the first place to become more aware. And of course, partnering with experts in cybersecurity is the best way to go. Of course, we also have academics that teach courses dedicated to this. But then it's always helpful to have practical examples and interactions. So I think that's the way to go, is to have more courses, more educational material. This seminar being one of the events that is really trying to raise awareness on this, so that then people become more conscientious of what they need to do in order to be safer.
Thank you.
Okay, is there other questions in the room? If not, I wanted to ask one question from my end. It's more a philosophical question. So what do you think is the role that institutions, NGOs like yours, or in general, civil society can have in expecting more from, say, cybersecurity becoming a public good and being in this, everything you're saying is, we are taking the good guys and we're helping them fight off the bad guys. But, I don't need to go to trainings to, lock properly my room. I expect that, if someone tries to break in my place, the police will come and help. Now, it seems that cybersecurity is more, you're all by yourself. Is there some advocacy, some lobbying, or what do you think should be the role of state and public institutions in promoting cybersecurity? Because we are seeing a perfect example here of a philanthropic organization doing the job of helping individuals on something that could be considered a public good, right? Cybersecurity. And we know, hospitals and so on, normally they have their own people taking care of cybersecurity, but they're actually, for normal security, we are relying on taxes paying the police, for instance, to save them. Well, what's your view on this, and what could be done, you think, on this direction?
No, it's a very good point. I think NGO world is like a bit your real life. So either it happened to you, but if you see it from far, you don't really care. And I think that's where we have to advocate and make a difference, is to bring concrete example to the society. And that's the role of civil society today, is because when we talk of cyber attack against non-profit organization, about civil society organization, the mainstream media will never talk about it. Okay, they talk of ICRC. First time in years they talk about the cyber attack and non-profit organization. So this is really the role of us, of all the actors in this non-profit world, is to demonstrate there is a reality. There is cyber attack happening every day against organization. But if we don't know what's happening on the ground, we cannot advocate at the end. Because we can do presentation like that saying, oh, we talk of cybersecurity, but without example, doesn't make any sense. It's like you said, yeah, it's a bad guy, the good guys. So I think that's really the role, is to be close to this civil society organization on the ground, close to these grassroots NGOs on the ground, and understand what is their situation, analyze what's happening to them, what are the consequences on the human's life against cyber attack, and at the end be able to advocate, make noise about what's happening concretely on the ground. I think that's really the difference we can make today, is all this chain to bring the reality up to the general audience. You have any?
Well, I mean, if I can just add something, I think that about cybersecurity becoming a good, a public good. I think that we are going in that direction, but we are still a bit far. Just because technology as a tool has this power of moving so fast. And us, as human beings, we are struggling, at least for now, to keep up with it. We just struggle. Also, us, as cybersecurity experts, part of our job to just read the news all the time, just so hard, because there are always new technologies, there are always new way of carrying out an attack. And so I think that what needs to change, not only in the NGO sector, but a bit everywhere, is the mindset. We really need to understand that the type of threats we might face in our offline life, just walking in the street, that can happen online. And so in the same way that we are a bit cautious when we may walk in the street at night, we should be cautious when we are on a website that we really don't know. We have never seen this website before, we've never received that specific email from that specific person. So I think that in order to arrive there, we need to raise awareness, absolutely, but also be ready to kind of change our mindset as well.
think there's a question.
There's a question on the live stream. Is there a before, after the Ukraine war in terms of the nature and scale of cyber attacks against NGOs? Are NGOs that are helping Ukraine more vulnerable today?
Yes and no. In the sense that we have seen an increase of cyber attacks and cyber operations in general on both public and private sector in Ukraine and neighboring countries, NGOs being part of these targets. The main problem, unfortunately, is that, as we can all imagine, cybersecurity is not the priority for NGOs in this area right now. They have most pressing priorities, and so for this reason, us and we are working on this, trying to tell them the importance of their cybersecurity. For instance, back up their data. Most of the NGOs, they have their data only in one location, and if just something happens to that location, all the data is gone, just literally gone. And so maybe years of work, years of help to the population is just gone. And so this might sound silly for them at this moment because it's not their priority, but we are really trying to raise awareness and try to convince them that this is as important as other things and activities they carry out. Again, we understand the urgency of the situation, and so we understand also if they're not receptive, and so we are proposing also to come back later on. But all this for saying that, yes, they are absolutely more vulnerable targets than others, and this applies to every geographical region with some type of war, political tensions, and unrest.
All right, thank you so much again. Then Fabienne and Octavia, thank you everybody for joining us today. You're most welcome, those who are here in person, to join us for a coffee at the cafeteria. We're very happy if you want to talk with our panelists or just debate anything of what we learned today. And thank you so much also for those who follow the live stream. Have a great day.
Thank you.